3, 2, 1, action!
Welcome back to another Empathy Tale podcast. We're so excited for you to join us. This is Victoria Wolders, your host. Feel free to reach out to me at mykidslocker.com. That's a place where you can find resources, blog posts, and more ways to connect with me and listen to your favorite Empathy Tales episodes through any of your favorite podcast platforms. Well, we are excited today about telling you about a new story. Today's story is called Needlehead Mountain. And I think it'll be a wonderful opportunity for you to be able to learn a little bit about forgiveness and connection. Today, the story is about the gray grabbers. Now, for those that are unfamiliar about the gray grabbers are actually underneath the water in a lake in the Okanagan Kingdom. They were put there because of a curse. And unfortunately, they are not allowed to be able to live above the water. So, you're going to learn a little bit about the grabbers, and you're also going to learn a little bit about a character named Maya. Just to give you a heads up, this is me and my son talking and sharing the story. So, at the very end, I do get a little bit religious. And it's also because I'm talking to my daughter, and it's very close to her birthday. This recording was given on October 15th, 2019, a day before my daughter turned 13. So, just to give you a heads up, at the very end of this recording, I do say a little bit of a prayer for her. So, without further ado, I hope that you create compassion one story at a time, and I hope you are comfortable, because now I will begin. Okay, here we are at episode 69, and today we are going to be doing Needlehead Mountain. Once upon a time, a long time ago, in the land of the northern eagle, there was a mountain, and the mountain was called Needlehead Mountain. Now, everyone knew what a needle looked like. A needle at the very head of it had a hole in it, and you put thread through the needle, and then you use the needle to sew something up. Well, this was a very magical mountain because it too had a hole in its head. The way that the mountain was formed, it led at the very top a symmetrical hole that looked like a needle. And what would happen is when the sun was rising, the sun would go through the hole in the mountain and radiate onto the lake below. And at that very moment, when the sun was right at the bottom of the needlehead to the top of the needlehead, something special happened. There was a portal into another world. The world was a magical world. And the world was under the water. Now, a long time ago, there was a story called The Grabbers. And do you remember the Grabbers? It was part of the Okanagan Princess story. And their grabbers were mystical beings that were found underneath the water. And they would often feel tempted and jealous of the world above. So if anyone was to ever look themselves in the reflection of the lake, the grabbers would grab their faces and grab their identity. And so whenever people would go canoeing or swimming in the lake, if they ever saw their reflection, they didn't always see theirs. They always saw someone from the past that the grabbers had grabbed. Now, don't get me wrong. When the grabbers took someone's face, It was almost like they took a selfie or took a picture of it. And they just kept those pictures underneath the water, almost as memories of what it would be like to live on land. And they would just occasionally pop them up once in a while. Well, because Needlehead Mountain had this magical way about it, with the sun rising and the sun getting just exactly through that needlehead and hitting the water at the exact same point, the grabbers were able to come to the surface for that short period of time. And the exact time between the sun rising at the bottom of the needlehead to it rising to the top of the needlehead was exactly 13 minutes. And often you'd see these mystical creatures climbing upon the water and dancing and singing and being so happy for those 13 minutes because they absolutely delighted in it. If it wasn't for Needlehead Mountain, the grabbers would never have an opportunity to dance upon the river or on the lake. And the village people who lived around them would also call them the grabbers, but it seemed like such a harsh word for such a mystical being that was so beautiful. And really, they never wanted to be under the water. They just happened to be put there by a wizard once. Luckily, there was a way out, and for that 13 minutes, they were able to dance upon the water. One day, there was a visitor to the land, and he didn't know about the grabbers. And he decided to jump into a boat in the early morning. It was quite dark, and the sun was rising. And the sun hit the bottom of the needlehead, and it peered its way through, and the light danced like beautiful raindrops glistening on a spring day. And the grabbers realized that they could dance upon the water. So they started dancing. Now there was probably about 50 mystical beings that were below the water that were able to dance for those 13 minutes. And one of those mystical beings was Maya. She had been trapped under the water for such a long time, and she yearned to be able to have the day where she could be able to be back on land. But because of the curse, she was never able to do that. Well, that one morning, when that stranger was in the boat, their eyes met, and Maya fell in love. She knew that this was the man she was going to marry. The man was honorable and just and empathetic and compassionate, and he was a leader. And once their eyes met, he too knew that he would someday marry this mystical being. Maya danced up to him after 3 minutes of being above the water, and she said, "Sir, what is your name?" He said, "My name is Edward, and I come from the land of the southern eagle. I didn't realize that this was your land." She said, "Years and years ago, us grabbers used to live in a village. We loved our village, and we lived on the edge of Needlehead Mountain. The wizard of the northern eagle came, and he got angry at us because he did not like us living on the edge of the mountain. So he cast us, all of us, into the water and pushed us down the mountain. The only thing is he also gave us the blessing of being able to breathe underwater. So we now have a world underneath the water. We capture people's faces and their beauty, and then we reflect it back to anyone who will see it." She looked at him and said, "Do you want to see it?" As the time ticked on, he said, "Yes, I would." And she moved her hand gently across the water. And at that very moment, he saw the faces of so many different people, and he recognized one of them. He said, "That was my grandmother when she was younger." Maya said, "Yes, we have been here for many, many years. We do not grow old because we have been put on the curse. but one day we will be set free. And Edward at that point said, how do you get set free? How do you get set free? Well, that time it was 12 minutes. And the sun was just about the top of the Needlehead. And she looked at him and she said, I know how. And as she was just about to speak, the sun had lifted above the Needlehead and they disappeared. Well, for the whole day, he spent paddling around that lake, talking to other villagers who were new inhabitants to the land, asking about Maya and asking about how to release this curse. No one knew. So he decided to sleep on the banks of the beach. And the next day, he was going to meet Maya again. So the next day, he jumped in his boat. Early in the morning, the sun started to rise, and it hit the bottom of the Needlehead. And the mystical creatures once again rose. He paddled out, and there he saw Maya in the most splendid, beautiful blue dress that he had ever seen. It was sparkling, and she came to him. He said, you didn't get a chance to tell me how I rescue you. She said, there's only one way. You need to get the hair of magical unicorns and thread them together and make a very, very long line. Just as the sun hits the bottom of the Needlehead, it will glance onto the lake. You're going to dip the unicorn hair into the water, and all of us will grab onto it. If you are able to pull us all out at that very moment for the 13 minutes, then all of us will be saved. All of us will be rescued. The only thing is you have to do it all, truly within 13 minutes. If any one of us is caught down, then we stay down there forever. See, unicorn hair was the most magical thing, and it was one of those things that once it entered the water, it would reverse the curse. But they had to be very careful. He said, where do I get unicorn hair? She said, well, if you go to the top of the Needlehead Mountain, you will see a ladder, and the ladder will go up to the Sunsol Kingdom. The Sunsol Kingdom have taken unicorn hair throughout the centuries, and they have them woven and beaded throughout their clothes. All you have to do is pick up a couple of their cloaks and bring them down. He said, oh, that shouldn't be too bad. She said, the only thing is the Sunsols love their cloaks, so be very careful. He said, I will do this, and I will do this for you. So he left them, and the 13 minutes passed, and they were gone again. And soon he decided that he was going to have to go up to the Sunsols right away. So he climbed up to the very tip of the Needlehead Mountain, and they saw the glistening ladder, the glistening rope ladder, and he went up, all the way up. And there, on the clouds, were these musical, beautiful, fairy-like sunsols. And he noticed a number of them wearing sashes. And he went to one of them and said, I have fallen in love with someone who is a grabber. She is underneath the water, and I need your unicorn hair to help me. Several of the Sunsols, being true romantics, knew that they needed to do something. So they took their sashes off. They said, we will give them to you. We don't normally give them away, but because of your story of love and true devotion, you take our sashes and you use them. But be careful, Edward, because the Wizard of the North will be angry. And if you don't do everything within 13 minutes, anyone locked underneath her will be there forever. So he took the sashes with the beautiful unicorn hair in them, and he went down the golden ladder to the tip of the Needlehead Mountain and climbed down the mountain. There he stood and waited. He didn't sleep a wink that night because he knew he needed to be up for the dawn. And the dawn shone It was the most beautiful morning ever, and the beautiful wind whistled through the grass and the trees. The sun shone brightly, and he knew this was the day he was going to rescue his love. So he walked upon the edge of the banks to his boat, and he went into the boat. As he started to paddle up, he knew the light was starting to shine through the bottom of the Needlehead Mountain, onto the lake, and there he saw the people dancing. He said, I have the unicorn hair rope, and we will put it down, and we will take you, and you grab the unicorn hair, and we will pull you up. So he did, and as they were dancing, they dove back down, and they grabbed him. He got a couple, and he got some more, and some more. His boat was filling up. So he quickly paddled to the side, dropped them off. He got children and old women and men and young women, but he could not find Maya. Quickly, quickly, he said, I need to find Maya. They said, we haven't seen her recently. So they went back into the middle of the lake. Quickly, quickly, where's Maya? Where's Maya? And there he saw, under the water, her. She was holding the very end of the unicorn hair. She was smiling. He said, keep pulling, keep pulling. By that time, it was 11 minutes. Keep pulling, keep pulling. And he had many people in his boat. He realized he had to empty them off to the shore. So quickly, he went off to the shore, dropped them off, and he went into the middle. Quickly, quickly, it was getting close, 12 minutes. Finally, her hand reached the top of the water. It was 12 minutes and 30 seconds. He had to hurry. He said, quickly, quickly. And as she went out, her beautiful shoe that was just at the tip fell off, and it became 13 minutes, and her shoe was lost to the depth, but she was saved. He hugged her and said, we will be together forever. And as they looked down the water, they noticed just her single shoe floating there, solid, for eternity. And they looked up at the Needlehead Mountain and smiled. As the sun rose higher and higher, he paddled to the side, and he said to the village of the grabbers, he said, you have suffered much. You have been under the water for such a long time, and now you are at a point where you realize that you have been saved. You are greatness, and your village will be called Greatness, because you chose to still be joyful in your suffering. You chose to still dance in the time when you could have cried and you could have been angry. You chose to give joy, and you've also given me the best gift of all, and that is Maya. He turned to Maya and said, will you marry me? And Maya said, yes, I will marry you. And so several months later, on the bank of the lake, during 13 minutes of when the sun was the lowest of the Needlehead to the highest of the Needlehead, they got married. And they were grateful for the days that they spent together. And the people lived happily ever after in the village of Greatness. The end. Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode. This is Needlehead Mountain, and thank you so much for listening to another empty tale. Today is October 15th, 2019. I'd like to dedicate this story to my daughter, Sarah, who's 12 and going to be 13 tomorrow. 13. And I thank you so much for who she is and what a beautiful person she is. She reminds me of Maya, being so elegant, gracious, and joyful. And I pray that, Lord, that you would continue to bless her. Anyways, I'm going to wrap up the empathy tale. The end. Thank you for joining us. It's Victoria Wolders signing off. Well, I hope that you truly enjoyed the Needlehead Mountain story. And I hope that you learned something about connection and about perspective taking and relationships. As a mindful, educational storyteller, I try to make sure that I incorporate good virtues in every single story that I tell. I truly believe it's important to infuse positive narratives into our social media platforms and to our cyber world. Perhaps you might be able to do the same. Take some time to think about how you can encourage another person today, whether that's online or whether that's in person. Thank you so much for joining us today for another My Kids Locker Empathy Tale episode. I look forward to connecting with you, and I would love for you to reach out to me at mykidslocker.com. I'm a mother, I'm a teacher, and I'm also a mindful educational storyteller. I would love to hear from you, and I hope that you have a wonderful part of your day wherever you are. And until next time, I hope that you too will create compassion one story at a time. Thank you.
3, 2, 1.